long before history was written, before kingdoms rose and empires fell. The waters of the Arabian Sea guarded a mystery that would endure for thousands of years. For centuries, these quiet waters concealed a secret, hidden beneath the shifting tides, beyond the reach of memory. Then, beneath the waves, the outlines of something extraordinary begin to appear. Not natural formations, but the silent remains of a forgotten world. Stone by stone, walls, foundations, and weathered pillars emerged from the seabed, evidence that an ancient settlement had rested beneath these waters for millennia. What had long been dismissed as legend was beginning to take shape. Beneath the Arabian Sea lay the unmistakable remains of an ancient city, its streets, foundations, and walls preserved beneath the waves. Even after thousands of years beneath the sea, its carefully planned streets and enduring stonework still speak of remarkable skill, order, and human ambition. Was this the legendary city of Dwarka, the kingdom described in ancient Indian tradition? Or was it another forgotten civilization, waiting beneath the sea for history to remember its name? The search for the truth had only just begun. Long before modern archaeology entered these waters, the name Dwaraka had already survived for centuries, preserved in ancient literature, regional traditions, and the collective memory of India. Ancient traditions describe Dwaraka as a fortified city on India's western coast, a place of strong walls, guarded gateways, and harbors opening toward the Arabian Sea. According to tradition, Lord Krishna led his people westward, away from repeated conflict, toward a new settlement protected by distance, strong defenses, and the sea. The texts remember Dwaraka not merely as a refuge, but as a prosperous maritime capital, alive with merchants, craftsmen, ships, and trade across the Western Sea. Its strength was said to lie not only in its walls, but in the way the city met the sea, through guarded gateways, stone embankments, and protected harbors. And then, the tradition takes a darker turn. After Krishna's departure, the sea is said to have risen over Dwaraka, swallowing its streets and leaving the city beneath the waves. Was this only a sacred story? Or could it preserve the distant memory of a real coastal city, transformed over centuries into legend? To search for an answer, we must now turn from ancient texts to evidence beneath the sea. On India's western coast, Krishna and the Yadavas searched for a place beyond the reach of repeated invasion. Before them lay a naturally protected shoreline, a place where a new city could rise beside the sea. The new settlement would not grow by chance. Its roads, walls, water systems, living quarters, and harbor were carefully planned around the natural shape of the coast. Soon, the vision began to take form. Across the rocky shoreline, builders laid deep stone foundations, creating the first strong base for a city meant to endure the power of the sea. Stone by stone, the settlement rose above the shoreline. Streets, homes, gateways, and defensive walls began to transform the empty coast into a carefully organized city. The sea would become Dwaraka's greatest strength. Along the protected bay, engineers shaped stone embankments, docks, and harbor channels, opening the new city to fishing, travel, and distant trade. As families settled behind its walls, Dwaraka became more than a refuge. Markets opened, craftsmen returned to their trades, and ships carried people and goods through its growing harbor. From a distant refuge, Dwaraka had become a fortified city of homes, markets, workshops, and harbors. Rising beside the sea, it stood as the new heart of the Yadavas and as one of ancient India's most enduring legends. At dawn, Dwaraka's harbor came alive, a protected gateway connecting the new city to distant shores. Through its guarded harbor entrance came timber, grain, metals, and goods carried from settlements across the Western Sea. Trade in Dwaraka was measured, recorded, and controlled, turning the harbor's arrivals into the wealth of a growing kingdom. Beyond its markets, Dwaraka depended on messengers, records, and councils to govern a rapidly expanding maritime city. At the center of this growing power stood Krishna, guiding trade, defense, and diplomacy through counsel rather than conquest alone. But prosperity also drew attention, and beyond Dwaraka's guarded waters, unfamiliar sails began to appear. Dwaraka had become wealthy, organized, and powerful. But as its lamps rose against the evening sky, the city understood that prosperity would also have to be defended. This is the Dwaraka, preserved in India's ancient memory. But memory is not the same as archaeological proof. Long before archaeology entered the search, Dwaraka survived through ancient literary and religious tradition, preserved and retold across generations. The traditions describe an organized coastal city, protected by gateways, walls, and access to the Western Sea. These images are reconstruction, not archaeological confirmation. The traditions placed Dwaraka on India's western coast. Here, around modern Dwarka and Bet Dwarka, investigators began examining a real maritime landscape, shaped by settlement, trade, and changing shorelines across different periods. The traditions remember a prosperous city connected to the sea. Archaeology confirms that this wider coast supported harbor activity, anchors, and long-distance exchange across more than one historical period. But this alone does not identify Krishna's Dwaraka. The tradition also remembers a city eventually reclaimed by the sea. Could traces of such a settlement have survived beneath these waters? Ancient texts can preserve geography, memory, and belief. But to move from tradition to history, investigators needed physical evidence. For centuries, Dwarka's story survived in sacred texts and living tradition. In the 20th century, the search for its physical past began to move beyond the shoreline and into the sea. Archaeological investigations at Dwarka first focused on the settlement on land. Later, researchers including S.R. Rao extended the search beyond the shoreline, beginning systematic exploration of the shallow waters off the coast. Marine archaeology required more than diving. Every descent depended on careful survey, measurement, and documentation, so that objects could be studied in their original underwater context. Below the surface, visibility was limited. Sand, currents, and marine growth obscured the seabed, forcing archaeologists to examine the area slowly and systematically. Among the most significant finds were numerous stone anchors. Their forms and drilled holes point to sustained maritime activity, possibly associated with an ancient anchorage or harbor. But the anchors alone could not establish the identity or precise date of the site. Worked stones were documented both beneath the water and along the intertidal shore. Their presence was significant, but erosion, displacement, and the absence of secure dating made their original purpose difficult to determine. Survey teams mapped the anchors, stone features, and coastal remains across the investigation area. Together, they pointed to significant maritime activity. But, without secure offshore dates, the evidence could not be connected confidently to one settlement or to the city remembered in the ancient texts. Beneath the waters of Dwarka, investigators found stone anchors, pottery fragments, and scattered remains. Evidence that this coast once supported an active and ancient maritime world. Ancient tradition remembers Dwaraka as the sacred city of Lord Krishna, built beside the Western Sea. Beneath these same waters, archaeology has uncovered traces of an ancient maritime past, evidence that may preserve an echo of that enduring memory. Yet one crucial link remains incomplete. To confirm these discoveries as Lord Krishna's Dwaraka, archaeology still require secure dates, undisturbed context, and a clear chain connecting the remains to the age preserved in tradition. The discoveries are real. Their meaning remains debated. Some see traces of an ancient harbor, others multiple periods of coastal activity, while natural processes may also have shaped parts of the seabed. The same evidence can lead careful researchers toward different conclusions. What can be said with confidence is already significant. The waters around Dwarka and Bet Dwarka preserve stone anchors, artifacts, and traces of long maritime activity. This was an important ancient coastal world, one deeply connected with the sea and remembered across generations. But Dwaraka has never existed only as an archaeological question. For millions, it is the sacred city of Lord Krishna, preserved in scripture, worship, and living memory. Whatever science may one day confirm, that connection has never disappeared. The evidence beneath these waters is incomplete. The final dates, connections, and answers are still being sought. Yet for millions, this has always been Lord Krishna's Dwaraka, a sacred city carried through scripture, faith, and living memory. Perhaps archaeology will one day reveal the complete story. Perhaps the sea has preserved only fragments of a far more complex past. But whether Dwaraka survives beneath the waves, within history, within tradition, or somewhere between them all, its memory has never been lost. The city returned to the sea, and the sea has not yet revealed everything. If you enjoyed this journey into the mystery of Dwaraka, subscribe to Ancient Pirate Studio. Like and share the video. Leave your thoughts in the comments and join us as we continue exploring the forgotten stories of ancient Bharat.